Hi there, welcome to my channel. We'll be doing a tutorial on trigonometry. Today we'll break down the basics, step by step, so you can confidently solve problems involving right-angled triangles. Let's dive in. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify the sides of a right-angled triangle. Use the SOHCAHTOA mnemonic to choose the correct trigonometric ratio and apply the formulas to find missing sides or angles of a triangle. Now, to be able to successfully solve trigonometry questions, you have to follow the following steps. Number 1, label the triangle sides. You need to be able to identify the opposite, adjacent, and the hypotenuse of the right-angled triangle. With the labeled sides, you need to be able to choose your ratio, which is in step number 2. You have to use the mnemonic of SOHCAHTOA to help you decide which ratio is best to use for the missing sides and to further solve your question. So it would be sine, cos, or tan. Once you've identified your ratio, you need to apply that ratio or formula to further solve your answer or your question, which is step number 3. Substituting the side length into the correct triangular formulas. Then you have your final step, which is to calculate your final answer. Completing the calculation to find your answer to your question. Round to the required accuracy, which majority of the time will be to 2 decimal points, unless specified otherwise. Step 1. Labeling the triangle sides. Identify the opposite, adjacent, and the hypotenuse of the right-angled triangle. Remember, your hypotenuse is the longest side. The opposite is the side that's opposite the angle that we're working with. So 35 is the one that we're working with. Therefore, the opposite of angle 35 is this one here. That has another number as well. Why we don't use this one here? Because that's what determines a triangle, whether it's 90 degrees or not. So therefore, this one is not the one that we're working with. So, adjacent is the one that's next to the angle, but isn't the longest side of the triangle, which is also known as the hypotenuse. So this one here is your adjacent. So the ones that are next to the angles. Remember, in a given right-angled triangle, the sides are labeled based on their relationship to a specific angle that is other than a 90-degree angle, which is the square that determines what the triangle is. Therefore, this one here is often not included when solving the right-angled triangle questions, especially in trigonometry. For this example, we are just focusing on 15 centimeters, 35 degrees, and the one that you're solving for. Step 2. Identifying and using which ratio to find x. Now, how do we know which trigonometric ratio to use? That's where the acronym or the phrase SOHCAHTOA comes in. Now, there's 3 different ratios that you need to remember. So your first one is sine, which is opposite, over hypotenuse. And then your second formula is cos or cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then you have third and final, which is tangent, which is also known as tan. Which is opposite over adjacent. The ratios to use depend on which sides that you know and which sides you're finding. So in this example, if we know the angle is 35 and we're solving for the hypotenuse, which is x, we use cosine because we know what the opposite side is, which is 15 centimeters. Which now leads us to doing step 3, which is applying the formula, where you have to substitute the side lengths into the correct formula. In the previous slide, we knew that we were going to solve for sine. Now, when it comes to solving this, you need to write your formula first, then following on with the steps. I'll do this example with you guys, and then you could do one by yourselves. So, we write sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. And what's the opposite? Remember, the opposite side is the one that's opposite of the angle that is given to us, other than the 90 degrees. So 35 degrees is our degrees, and the opposite of that is 15 centimeters. And we write 15 over what our hypotenuse is, which is x. So it would be 15 over x. But don't forget to do this step here. So it would be sine 35, which is your angle. So remember, when you are doing this one, you have to put sine and the degree that you're getting. Now, to solve this question, you need to rearrange the formula that you're given. So this is the formula that you have, and you have to rearrange it to be able to solve your question. So you have to rearrange to get the x to this side. So it would be something similar to this. X equals 15 over sine 35. So you're swapping these two around. You're swapping sine with x so that the x is by itself. Now, you have to use a calculator to plug in sine 35 degrees equals to 15 to get your answer. Or 15 over 35 degrees. Or more so 15 over sine 35. So once you've plugged that into your calculator, your answer should be something similar to this. X equals to 15 over 0.5736, which is also very similar to 26.15 once you solve this answer further, which leads to your final answer of 26.15. So, your hypotenuse length is approximately 26.15 centimeters. Remember, you have a unit. You have to always write the unit of measurement. And one good useful tip is to always have a concluding statement. Concluding statement tells you or summarizes the answer that you've gotten. You write this sign, which is the 3 dots, which is also known as, in maths, therefore. Hypotenuse is 26.15 centimeters. You can pause here to write down the answer, or you can move on to the next question. So obviously step 4 is calculating the answer, so round to the required accuracy, which here it's 2 decimal points. Majority of the questions will refer to 2 decimal points, but unless if it states 1 decimal point or 3 decimal points, the general consensus will be 2 decimal points. So hypotenuse equals to 15 over sine 35 degrees would equal to hypotenuse equals to 26.15. Remember the rule that I taught in the previous slide. Write your concluding statement, as it will be really important in your tests. Now we have some practice questions that you'll be able to do by yourself and use the previous slides to identify the formulas. Pause here if you need more time to solve them. Doing number 1, you'd need to label them first. Finding x where the angle is 32 degrees. The hypotenuse is 20. We need to know what the adjacent one is, which is x here. Which formula has the formula to find adjacent? So if your information is 32 degrees as your angle, your 20 degrees hypotenuse, and your x as your adjacent, what formula will you use? I'll let you figure it out in the next couple seconds. It would be cosine or cos. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Now to solve this, you would have cos or cosine, and remember, in the brackets of cos, you need to put your degrees in, which is 32, which equals, what's the adjacent? Adjacent is x over, what's the hypotenuse? 20. So that's your formula. Make sure you have to rearrange the formula to get to x by itself and to further solve what the x is. Trigonometry sometimes uses some of the rules that we learnt in algebra. So to be able to get x by itself and to get cosine on the opposite side, you need to multiply each side by 20 to isolate x. So, as this one's already in division, you need to be able to multiply both sides. So you multiply here and multiply here, which cancels these out and gets you to x equals 20 multiply cos 32 degrees. Remember, you have to put this to cos multiply 32 by, x equals 20 times cos 32. Make sure you put this into the calculator, which will get you your final answer of x. Now, remember, your answer has to be to 2 decimal places. Unless if it says 1 decimal place or 3 decimal places, it will always be 2 decimal places. Unless if it's told in the question specifically. Now, your answer for this one would be 16.96 centimeters. And that's your answer. I'll give you a couple more seconds, or if you need more time, pause the video to write down the answers. Now, question number 2. What will be the formula that you'll be using for this one? Remember, 16 is on the adjacent, the 42 is on the corner here, and what's opposite of it is this one here, and what's x? So where's the x sitting that you really need? So this side isn't adjacent, this side would be opposite, this side would be adjacent. So if 42 is pointing this way, remember, the side that's the angle's pointing at is opposite, and the angled side, other than the hypotenuse, is the adjacent. And that's all excluding this 90-degree angle. Keep that in mind. Find the appropriate formula, and then we'll continue the following question. Hopefully you found the answer that you need. The answer or the formula that you'll be using would be tangent, or tan, because it's opposite over adjacent. What makes it different from sine is that opposite over hypotenuse is sine, whereas tan is opposite over adjacent, which is clearly labeled in this diagram. Now, tangent is opposite over adjacent. And then remember, tangent, you write out, and in the brackets, it's the angle that you put in, which is 42 degrees. Now, what's the opposite? It's 16 centimeters over x. And remember from last time, you swap these two to isolate to get to x. So x equals 16 over tangent 42. So what's the answer that you'll get? Make sure you put in 16 over tangent 42 degrees in your answer. This is what you put into your calculator. You don't have to put in x, but you would have to put in 16 over tangent 42 in the brackets. Write down your answers in the comments below. Your answer will be 17.77 centimeters. Remember, always to include your unit of measurement. So therefore, adjacent equals to 17.77 centimeters. To practice more questions, make sure you use your textbooks that you're given by school or find some online worksheets. If you want more resources, please write down in the comments below. And these are your final answers. So the answer for 1 and answer for 2. Like I was saying, if you want more resources, write down in the comments below. Or if you want some textbook recommendations, I could also send some suggestions in the comments. And if you have any questions, write them down in the comment section below. Hopefully this video was really helpful.